Rabbi Andrew Paley of Temple Shalom in Dallas. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been a long few days, and I'm wondering, what are your thoughts about the hostage situation at Congregation Beth Israel in Colleyville?
Yeah, thanks for having this conversation. It's a terrifying event to witness and to behold loved ones, family, friends in danger, and I'm so relieved to know that everyone is safe and back with their families, and to also know just what the incredible outpouring of support across the Metroplex and indeed across the world has been. People praying and showing up and offering their love and their care and support. It's been tremendous.
You felt that?
Absolutely, yeah.
How? You're getting messages?
Messages from friends and colleagues for me, and I know for the congregation, the rabbi and his family as well. It's incredible outpouring of support.
So the FBI and the Department of Homeland Security are now warning, they sent it out yesterday, that places of worship may continue to be targets of violence. What do you make of that?
Well, it's not unfamiliar, and we don't need an extra warning to be vigilant, as we know that there's evil and people bent on terror. So there is always an increased sensitivity to that, and I'm always aware that it's out there.
You were asked to go to Colleyville and help law enforcement on Saturday as this was going on. So what was your role there?
So I was asked to assist with the team taking care of the families of the hostages, and if there were any hostages released, to be with them, to support them, to care for them.
And I mean, what was going on that you can talk about behind the scenes, and what was the level of tension must have been through the roof?
So by the time I arrived, the scene had been unfolding for several hours already. So the law enforcement agencies are just unbelievably professional, and the care and the skill that they exhibited was amazing. Lots of activity to make sure that the area was secure, the information between the agencies was flowing appropriately. So there was a lot of activity and hundreds of personnel on all levels, making sure that this ended in the best possible way. So to be able to be a part of that and to kind of ride the roller coaster of calm and a little bit of activity and nervousness and quiet was unreal.
Did you have an opportunity to speak with the families of those held hostage before they escaped? And although one was freed earlier on in the afternoon, and what did they tell you, and how were you able to comfort them, if that was the case?
Right. I spoke briefly, very briefly, with the families, and wanted to just express to them what they already knew, which, having watching the news and social media and so on, that there had been this just tremendous outpouring of love and support. People who came as close as they could at the church to be there, just to show up and to demonstrate their love, and I was able just to share that with them briefly, that we're here and we're not going anywhere until this is resolved, and we'll be with them and to support them. And they, of course, were hopeful, exhausted, and appreciative all at the same time.
And did you have a chance to actually speak with those who were held hostage after they were, in one gentleman's case, released, but after their escape?
So I was able to speak with that first gentleman briefly. He and his daughter reunited with his daughter briefly, and they were in good spirits and ready to, sort of go home and find a safe place. Shortly after all the events were over, I was able to give Rabbi Charlie a hug and let him know that I was sort of on behalf of everybody who wanted to give him a hug, and so relieved that he and the others were safe.
What did that gentleman who was released early on have to say?
Well, he was so appreciative, of course, of all the efforts that the law enforcement agencies and the cooperation, collaboration was going on to make it possible for his safe release at that time. He was complimentary, of course, of Rabbi Charlie, who was calm and being a force of reason and comfort to those who were there. Glad to be out, of course, and he was just encouraged by everyone and all the moments of words of comfort that he received.
One of those held hostage I spoke with yesterday, Jeffrey Cohen, and he told me that the reason that the hostage taker selected their synagogue was because he believed the anti-Semitic trope that Jews controlled everything, and so he thought they would be able to help gain the release of this inmate at the federal prison in Fort Worth.
Right.
When you hear that about the trope, that Jews control everything, what goes through your mind?
Listen, this is not a new development. It's sad that these images and stories and tropes are being repeated and believed and so on, and that it would motivate somebody to hurt somebody else. It's just a reminder that there's a lot of work to do to combat that kind of thinking, that we're not in a redeemed world yet, that there's still a lot of effort that we must undertake to make sure that a world filled with justice and love and peace and harmony is the message that we want to promote. Of course, that's who we are in the Metroplex, and we want to make sure that we remind the world that that's who we are as well. And it's going to take an extra effort, clearly, but we'll keep at it.
Cohen told me it needs to be called out when you hear it. It needs to be challenged when you hear it.
Absolutely, yeah. And look, it's still there, and we can't pretend it's not. So more effort and other kinds of messages of who we are and what we're about and what we promote and who our allies are and all that needs to come out as well.
And he also, I did ask him about if this hostage taker, went on tirades, anti-Semitic tirade, and he said yes, it was anti-Israel, anti-Zion, but also anti-African American and anti-gay and even anti-Muslim. And so when you hear that, again, I would just ask you, you talked about more work needing to be done. How do you accomplish that? And how do you go about doing that?
Well, I think we take a page from Rabbi Charlie's leadership in building bridges across faith communities and people who we wouldn't necessarily ordinarily have a chance to interact with and learn from and so on, and build bridges and build relationships and acquire a deep and abiding love for the other person. There's great examples of that across our city, and we need more of that. And we saw a little bit of that when the faith leaders in different communities were actually on site, demonstrating that regardless of what our particular policy issues are that we might have indifference, we're children and brothers and sisters, and we need to stand together. And more of that is an important part of the solution.
I understand there were pastors and imams there that night with you.
Right.
And so let's talk about security, because as we've known, security has been increased over the years at synagogues and other Jewish organizations. And so now there's this new warning that we discussed before that's out there. So I guess, are you reviewing security?
So this is a constant process that we undertake to make sure that our systems and protocols and assets are deployed appropriately and in the best possible way.
How do you go about making sure that everybody in the congregation is safe, and at the same time making sure that the synagogue is still a welcoming place?
Right. This, of course, is the great challenge and the great balance. We are always trying to be that welcoming place, and we pride ourselves on being that place. And yet we know that there always an element of possibility out there. So we place our faith in our security team and the protocols that we have in place, the communication that we have with local authorities, and the resources that we share across the community, in the Jewish community, and with our neighbors and other faith communities. And those multiple layers we feel are adequate and of course continually reviewed, but will allow us to be welcoming and open our doors, and at the same time make sure that everybody is safe and secure.
I know that on Saturday that Dallas Mayor Eric Johnson announced that Dallas police would be out patrols, increasing their security. We see an officer still out here in front of your synagogue. Knowing that the mayor responded, the police department responded, and that this has also gone on in Fort Worth and Plano, what's your reaction to that?
We are just so grateful for the support from the mayor's office, from our local police, and we know that we're in relationship with them. We want to support their efforts as well. They have a tremendous task in keeping everybody safe in our city. We recognize that, and we hope that we can do whatever we can to support them and appreciate their efforts, knowing that there is a heightened worry, of course, and they recognize that, and doing their extra part to keep us safe is so appreciated.
Rabbi Andrew Paley, thank you so much for
Thank you.
joining us. We
Appreciate it.
appreciate your time.